That is such a valuable piece of advice there.
These are the sorts of things that we should talk about right in the first 5 minutes of the podcast.
Started giving people free quotes. Isn't sunshine and rainbows, and isn't, everyone sees you doing so well.
For just being a solo
The
operator.
change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
I'm doing an interview next week with a person who represents the profit first business model. Mm-hmm. And one of the underlying principles with profit first, obviously, making sure you have profit each month or each time you pay anything is really critical on that one. But the underlying principle that really helps with cash flow is what they call small envelope or small pocket accounting, where you go, okay, every time you get $1, that dollar gets split into anywhere from 4 pockets through to 10, 15 pockets. So that I've been guilty of this in the early days, I had one bank account for the business. If there was $15,000 sitting in the bank account, I or my wife would be like, hey, let's draw money out of that to pay for groceries, pay the bank home loan, pay whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Whereas now I've got 4 business bank accounts, and so the moment I get paid, so I put money into tax, I put money into other expenses, and I put money into that 10% for future proofing equipment and maintenance. And that way, if, say, for instance, my equipment consists of tools that are worth no more than $2,000, it's not really a major issue. I can probably wing it. Yeah. But if my vehicle breaks down, and this is the fault of somebody new in business, they've probably got a $5,000 vehicle when they start out. So it's not much more than the other equipment, but the likelihood of it breaking down is quite high. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you go, okay, I'm going to buy a vehicle, much like my equipment, it's got to be fit for purpose, then you're looking for a vehicle that will last 5 to 10 years. Yeah. And then you go, okay, do I need to finance something to last 5 to 10 years, or have I put the money aside consistently and I've got the money there to go out and buy it?
Yeah.
But anyway, that model I'm talking about, I'm going to be going into depth in that with another interview in terms of the importance of putting money into separate pockets so it helps to even out your cash flow, because the temptation when you're a new business, and cash is tight when you're new in business, is to go, okay, every time $1 comes in, that's going straight into the grocery budget or straight into the beer budget or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Well, and one of the other principles that I learned very early on in running your own business is the principle of not eating out of the cash register. You have to pay yourself a salary. Yeah. You cannot finance your personal life out of your business. When you're working for yourself, the lines are very blurred, because you'll be thinking about work when you're at home and taking phone calls for customers at home, and when you work out in the day, and so it gets a bit blurred. But in terms of your finance, you got to keep them separated, and you got to, from a budgeting point of view, it'd be fascinating to listen to that conversation next week, because the way I, as a kid, I learned to budget is my mum used to set out envelopes on the bed once a month, and she'd put the grocery money into one envelope and the electricity into another envelope, and that's exactly that principle. The beauty these days is that banks will allow you to have, under a single login on your internet banking, have 5, 6, 10 different accounts, and have a accrual account, have a BAS account, have a equipment account, and it's the same as having the envelopes. But it becomes more disciplined, because when you have a single account, and especially if you're not doing the books or doing it regularly, and so you got somebody else doing it, you don't really think about what that 15K need consists of. It just looks like a nice chunk of money sitting there.
That's right.
Yeah. But it's not broken down. So putting it into those different envelopes is, from a principal point, is very, very good, because I'm not going to touch that one, because that one needs to sit there till the end of this quarter, because I'm going to have to pay my BAS out of that, or that one's sitting over there because that's the account that we're saving up for, the new ride-on, or those kind of things. So I like that principle a lot. And the principle of not eating out of the cash register. The cash register is the businesses, You get paid a salary out of that. Everything else gets paid out of that.
Yep.
You can decide if you want to give yourself a raise or not. But at the end of the day, it has to remain that. And then you can do your personal budget separately as if you were working for somebody else.
That's right. I'll give a free shout out here. I've had a number of people ask me about interviewing the company called Henry. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's
They approached
HNRY.
us. Yeah, they do the small financing, don't they?
So, they have an app that connects with your business account. So it works only with sole traders, and I suspect works in the instance where sole traders, I think, can only have one account that's linked to their business.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about this. But if you run the Henry app, then when you get a payment come in, Henry tells you how much money is in which pocket. So it's, in one sense, it's only one bank account, but you look at Henry to look at how much money you've got available, because it'll tell you there's that much money for tax, and there's that much money for insurance, and there's that much money for fuel. So it's a way of software.
Well, it's a software.
It's
a software budget. You probably tell it what your budget is and where you want to put the different percentages of the income, and it distributes. Oh, that's fair. I think I saw the ads maybe pop up on YouTube or whatever, because it definitely sounds familiar. I haven't looked into it. That'll be fascinating as well. Yeah,
for people who are starting out, if they don't have an accountant that's setting up business structure and they're just going out at sole trader to work out whether they want to do this, then Henry is probably a necessity. If you don't have it, then you're probably if you don't have it, you're probably just working for beer money.
Yeah, well, exactly. If you get to the end of the week, you go, look, the pockets are full. I'm going to use some of this. Then you're just on a road to nowhere, because very quickly. And we saw this. I don't know if it occurred that much, but you can, if you're in the service industry, you are very sensitive, and I think we're in the industries that we operate in, we're probably more sensitive to economic fluctuations than many other people in other industries, because our margins are so small, and a lot of the customers that pay us out of personal money. And so when something starts squeezing, interest rates on mortgages start squeezing somewhere, groceries start squeezing, that squeeze hits us very quickly and very directly. We have in the service industries that we're in, we've got a very small lag and a very small tolerance in those economic factors, where it's easy for them to cut, the $50 a week. They think it's easy to cut the $50 a week thinking that they'll be saving money, and I'll just do that on a Saturday morning. I don't have to pay someone for it. So we feel that very quickly. I don't know what you think, but I've noticed that a lot.
I'm pretty passionate about this one, and I like to scare people into doing the right thing here. If you're looking at inflation over the last few years, inflation, depending on how it's measured in Australia, you could say somewhere around 7 to 8% per annum. And that's pretty scary. So
that's
if you're looking at,
that's not the 2.1
it's not the CPI.
No, it's definitely not the CPI. Absolutely.
That's the real inflation.
That's the real inflation, yes.
What I would say is, if you're running a small business, then, and particularly if you do understand the idea of managing cash flow, you sit there and you go, okay, I've got $100,000 worth of expenses to pay. If inflation is 8%, then I've got $108,000 expenses to pay.
Yep.
Right. So that's in 12 months. It goes from $100,000 to $108,000 in expenses. And that's going to vary because we're in an industry where not all of our expenses are going up at the same rate. So, but there's not necessarily a 8% increase on everything you touch. Yeah. But if your expenses are $108,000 this year and they were $100,000 last year, and you're going, how much money am I putting in the bank this year? Well, if you didn't put your prices up by more than 8%, then your personal bank account just went down by that much.
Correct. And that 10% that you were setting aside was actually only 3%.
Correct.
Yeah. And the other bit about the cash flow and looking after, using something like Henry is that rainy day nest egg because we saw a massive slowdown in the tree services industry during probably starting like May, June this year through to probably September. Now that coincided with some Reserve Bank interest rate changes, inflationary numbers that came out that scared a lot of people. So suddenly people were clutching the wallets a bit tighter, and guys that were going off, typically being booked out 2 to 3 weeks ahead. We're going down to 2 or 3 days a week and having nothing for the next week until late. So very hard to do planning. And a lot of guys started struggling. And the first place we noticed it was the secondhand equipment market just blew up. The amount of gear, you couldn't find a decent secondhand wood chipper 2 or 3 years ago. They were like hen's teeth. You go look at what the market looks like today. And so that's a very good indicator when there's a sudden downturn in the economics. You have to be ready as a business to be able to ride those storms when they hit. Because there is going to, as we all know, well, especially those of us that have been in business for a while, there are always going to be slow periods, and especially again in the nature controlled environments that we work in. Nature plays a big role, economics plays a big role, all those things. How are you going to handle the months where there's a 20% downturn in your business and the business that's coming in? How are you going to carry through your business? Do you want to be in a position where you start considering going back and working for somebody else? Or will you have something to carry you through and at the very least cover the expenses to keep the business afloat for that period of time? And a good business principle somebody taught me when I was in the corporate days was everybody should have a, let's call it emergency business saving. And it probably took us almost 3 years to get to that point. As the service business side of at least 3 months. I need to know that if I miss work for 3 months, and that goes for your disability type incidents as well, injuries, those kind of things. But you should within about 4 to 5 years time have set up enough funding next to your business that would be able to carry you if you had no business for 3 months, to at the very least pay all of your expenses so you don't start losing tools and vehicles and things because you can't pay those loans.
Efficiency is the thing that rules a business and the decisions you make as a small business owner. Right Mowers give you the options in their product lineup to match efficiency with size, fuel usage and the type of jobs you want to target, from catching to mulching or side discharge, from roadside verges to acreages and manicured lawns to 6 feet tall and super long. I've been using the Right Stander I 42-inch with a Catch Pro for manicured areas and the Stander ZK61 to maximise productivity for large open acreage mowing. If you need to replace your push mower, try the 32-inch Stander B. If you have more open access to residential properties, there's a 42 through to 48-inch option that suits you. And if you want to enter the acreage market, the 52, 61 and 72-inch machines have choices in engine size and model type to suit the work you want it to do. Right Standards go the distance, saving you time and money season after season. I like to put these things into perspective for my ideal listener, right? So the ideal listener for my podcast is somebody who is thinking about starting a business or somebody who has recently started and they're trying to make sure that they're getting all these things in perspective. So we got to keep in mind there's people all over the spectrum when it comes to these issues. But the average person starting a tree business or a lawn and garden business is probably going to start with zero funding, or they'll throw $2,000 to $5,000 in it. So they'll go, all right, I've already got a family car, so I don't need to purchase a vehicle right now. Can I get a trailer for $50, $500, $1,000? Can I get a chainsaw or a lawnmower or a whip snipper, whatever it is? And so if they're investing somewhere between $2,000 and $10,000 into the start of their business, that's probably a fairly big tax on their personal life or their
Yep.
family life. And they need to look at the forecast for the first 12 months, but also the first 5 years, because those are the two brackets which small businesses don't get past. And the hope is that in that first 12 months, they go from investing that $2,000 to $10,000 to going, okay, this is actually going to provide me with a personal income. And then after the first 5 years, they're starting to go, okay, is this sustainable? Can I reinvest in equipment? Can I invest in a dedicated work vehicle? Can I invest in more equipment to do the job? Now, this is where if you're lawn mowing, you go, okay, the Bunnings mower isn't quite up to the task for 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, 14-hour days I've heard some people doing through summer. And so that might be even 2 to 3 months in. People are going, all right, I need to go from a $400 mower to a Honda HRU 216, or in the current climate, you might be looking at the Ego commercial battery self-propelled mower, which is you're talking sort of around $1,500 to $3,000 when you're in that market for a decent commercial walk-behind self-propelled machine. Right. As people start to climb up in the business, so the first 12 months, it's just making sure they got some commercial equipment there. Some people will scale a lot quicker, but initially they'll start going, okay, I want to make sure I am in the market for making the best money possible. And I think one of the first things I did, even when I started my business, was to have a ride-on a zero-turn mower, because that's more efficient than pushing a mower. Right? But then at some stage I started going, oh, you know what, a chipper is going to make me more efficient when I'm doing gardening jobs. So that's when I started looking around at the chippers, and I think the range of chippers for doing gardening work would be sort of around $2,000 to $10,000. And I would say the ones that are going to deal with commercial use are probably $5,000 to $10,000 in terms of a reasonable machine that's going to handle regular commercial use. I want to push people a little bit further than this. And I know from stalking your business, when you're in the gardening game, I looked at doing this myself when I bought my chipper. So I spent $9,000 on the chipper, and I immediately started going, okay, could I rip the wheels off this machine and attach it to my trailer?
Yes.
But you've got a machine that will do this, right?
Yes. Well, what we did is, and interesting enough, it was a Jim's guy that came to us initially, because he had the Jim's trailer, the standard Jim's trailer with the cage in the front, within his little ramp where he could push his mower up. And he'd seen one of our the 4-inch 100 CDT models, which is on 4 wheels, so it's a trolley push around type machine, and he was looking at using it. It fit into that cage perfectly as well. It was fantastic. The way it was almost like the cage was made for it. And then we helped work on the concept, and his mate cut the inner, so the bit between the actual trailer bin and the cage. He cut a bit out there. And initially he was just using some tie downs to keep the chipper in there. And what it was really good, because he could either put the chipper on in the cage and just turn the chute so it's facing into the trailer bin, and he could chuck everything in there and it would fire the mulch, the chips straight into the trailer, and he didn't have to unload anything, and off he went. And then the odd occasion where he wanted to mulch into the garden, he could just wheel it out, go in the garden, do all the work in the back there.
Perfect.
We took that concept, but also then we heard a lot of the younger guys, and we were talking about financing and everything else. So like setting up even a small tree business, you need at the very least a ute and a tipper trailer. Nobody wants to be shoveling out 6 or 7 cubes of mulch out of a trailer at the tip every time, or wherever you want to go.
Typically, tree guys will go down the path of spitting it straight into the back of a tipper that's got high sides on it.
Correct. And then, so if you can get a good second-hand truck, you're looking at 40, 50 grand for the truck, and a Toby iron chipper, even
that much again.
another 40 grand for a 6-7 inch tow behind, and then you got your saws. So all of a sudden, a guy that is just starting up his business is up for 100K's worth of investment, and annual regos on the truck is about $1,200, and a rego on the chipper trailer is about Victoria is about $80. And then the servicing of the truck and everything else. So we heard a lot of, but most guys at the very least they've got like you said, the $5,000 ute, a couple of toolbox on the back, and maybe a couple of saws that he's got from his uncle, or bought one or two himself. So he's got some of the setup, but taking that leap to become working a lot more in the tree industry is a big capital leap. So what we did is we worked on this concept, and we went to our trailer builder, our local trailer builder, and we customized a couple of options in terms of the trailer and the chipper setup, so that we take that base chipper, although I'll go into the bigger one in a second, where you've got the concept of having the everything in a single setup, and capacity for the biggest one we do is a 7 cubic meter capacity tipper bin, where you've got a multi-function trailer that can double up as your mulch bin, as wood, firewood delivery, as putting your tools and your gear in, all in a specific built and designed setup. So you got the 4-inch gravity feed machine that you can either fix mount or mobile mount. So the 4 wheels fit into slots, a couple of pins that hold them in place if you want to use the machine on the trailer. Otherwise, you move it off, ramp it off like you do your mowers. Otherwise, there's a fixed one. You can actually go up to a 6-inch gravity feed machine, similar setup. And then we've got, which I would probably say is the commercial side, a lot of interest from the hire companies. We've sold to them, to hire companies. Councils like them as well. And then a lot of the guys that cross over in the garden maintenance area, but have got expertise in trees as well. So they've got a blend of probably a bit more tree work than regular mowing, but they do the mowing and the garden maintenance as well. Where we've mounted, and I think we are the only the only supplier in Australia that does a custom built tipper trailer with a 6-inch auto feed chipper on it. Which is really handy because it's 6 inches is a lot. In Victoria, if you're doing hardwood, most people don't even chip anything larger than 6 inches because you want to keep it for firewood if it's good,
of course,
hardwood. So you just want to be processing branches and heads and things. So there's a lot of capacity in there. It's an auto feed. So as you know, with your experience that you told me about earlier, when you've got an auto feed machine, you cut a lot less. You can cut a branch. If you know how to cut the branches, you can even chuck in a 7-inch capacity machine is a medium-sized tree. You can stick that in there. You got 6 meters of bin capacity, which is a load. Most of your small tipper trucks have a 10-meter bin. The beauty of this all is it all comes in a single setup, and it all only costs you $80 a year and a ute. As opposed to a truck, which is $1,200 rego a year and all the maintenance servicing that you got to do on the truck, as opposed to this whole setup, which you can hook on, hook off. Some of the guys that do stump grinding, they can put their stump grinders in the back as well.
That would make sense.
A real use. Sorry.
That would make a lot of sense for people who are doing small trees and gardening jobs where they want to put a lot of plants through their chipper into their tipper. Having a stump grinder in with it would just make a lot of sense. It would be a complete trailer setup to do whatever jobs come their way.
So we
like you say, they go up in size with the trees, and pretty quickly they're going to head towards a bigger chipper and a truck. But for a lot of people that are bridging that gap between lawns and gardens and small tree work, it's perfect.
Yeah, it's a really good setup because you still got the use of both sets of gear, whether you're doing lawns and gardens the one day, and doing some trees and pruning the next day, and maybe somewhere you got the customer wants you to cut up some firewood, you can chuck that in there and tip it out somewhere. And
Yep.
yeah, it's a really good design, and I've seen some of them. Well, I've seen some others around, but you could see that there was somebody that had hacked off the axle and things off a chipper and welded it onto some
Yeah.
existing tipper trailer. We have the whole setup, pre-manufactured, pre-set up exactly for that gear.
Yeah.
And then again, for the younger guys, it's fantastic because they
Yeah.
have to maybe take out a $50,000 investment, but they get the whole business set up on the back of a tray or the back of a ute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess this is
So we're pretty excited about it. Yeah.
going back to where I was introducing this. The idea is that people are going from your fairly basic equipment list to going, okay, I want to specialize in tools that are going to give me more return on my investment. So typically people are going to go, all right, do I spend, instead of $5,000 on my total setup, do I spend $20,000 on a ride-on mower and do acreage jobs? Do I reinvest in the gardening tools so that I can do a lot more gardening jobs? And if you go down that path, then the hedge trimming and the small tree work is going to come up, and that's where something like this trailer set up with a chipper build onto it makes financial sense, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And overheads are low and maintenance is low. And it's interesting because I have, and I really enjoy networking. And a network is a very good tool to grow your business at a very low cost. We were talking about the referrals earlier. A referral business has got a zero cost of sale.
Yeah.
Cost of sale is all your marketing and bookkeeping and all those kind of things. What it costs you to do and grow your business. Referral work, zero cost of it. So that is good money coming in that has cost you almost no investment, only doing a good job and being friendly to the customer. The same goes for other people in the industry. Now, personally, I don't like doing hedges. It's one of the bits of tree work that I probably would say no to if I had the choice.
Fair. Yeah.
But some people
I hear that from arborists all the time.
Yeah, but some people specialize in it. So I've got a couple of guys around that, they specialize in that. But again, their customers go, oh, thanks for doing those hedges. Can you prune up that big tree for us? And then they go, no. But then he gives the business to us and vice versa. If I don't have to do hedges, I can pass him the work.
Yep.
But we become, again, as I said earlier, we become trusted people in the customer's sphere, and they'll go, like the example I used earlier about landscaping, and or they'll go like, oh yeah, my gardener's retired. Do you have somebody that can do that for you? And that networking is really, it's really beneficial for everybody. And it doesn't have to be, oh, you give me 5 jobs and I give you 5. But that's, we all know that's not how a network works. When there's an opportunity for somebody you give that you don't want, you pass it on to them, and it goes both ways. So
yes,
I would say probably, I don't know, I reckon probably 30% of our tree business is from referrals in our network, both, gardening, hedging, those kind of businesses. And I reckon I probably pass on, at very least opportunities to quote 2 or 3 a week back to these guys, because we'll be busy with something and then somebody will,
and
inquire
you don't
from
want
us.
to do that hedge job.
The hedge job that I don't want to do. And I'll handball that over to our mate and go, and most of the time on both sides, we win the business because the business has been referred by somebody else that's been trusted. So the number of times that somebody would have said to me, oh, you probably, whatever, $1,000 more expensive on a day job than the other quote I have, but I want to go with you because, John, my gardener, has referred you.
Yeah.
The value in that, the dollar value in that is almost immeasurable. So having and building on those networks is very good. It's the same as when you said earlier, when somebody walks across the road and it says, when you're done, can you come and have a look at my lawn and give me a quote to mow that?
Yeah.
That does happen to us, but it happens more, or it's more successful in winning new business when I'm working on the side of the road and I can see there's a gardening guy across the road, and inevitably they've got a pole saw or a hedge trimmer or something on the side of the trailer. So I know they are doing some of that work already, the crossover work, and I'll just go over to him and go, "Hey mate, here's a card. If your customers ever come to you and they got work that's too big for you to do, or maybe some stumps that you need to do that you don't have the gear for, please refer us. Have you got a card? This customer across the road, I think she might be keen on you coming over and have a chat to her." So, there's a lot of symbiosis between the two industries, and I think we work together and feed off each other really well.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree with you. The thing that I've noticed in the lawn care and gardening space is that referral network eliminates some of the problem customers you might get. So typically speaking, if somebody contacts you because they've seen you around or they've been given your card by somebody they trust, you hear the first thing out of their mouth when they ask you to have a look at their job, the last guy.
Yes.
So you will see memes about the last guy in the lawn care industry, and they're prolific. But you probably get them in the tree industry as well, I'm guessing.
Oh, yes.
But this is why referrals matter, because they don't want the last guy, or they might want his prices, but they would rather get you out at that $1,000 extra because there's trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the beauty of the market, because a lot of especially when it was this quiet, a lot of the guys that haven't been in business that long would come to me and go, "Oh yeah, mate, so and so's undercutting me," and those guys from the western side of town have come over. They're chasing business over here. They're undercutting everybody, and I go, You know what? The cowboys are always going to be around, but the market knows how to weed them out. And that is why the networking is so important. That's why even guys that are in the same industry, I'll be doing work on this side of the road and there's another tree guy on the opposite side of the road. I'm always going to go say, "Hey, how are you going? How's business? What are you guys doing today?" Like, don't build up that level of competition that it becomes animus and people just glaring at each other.
Yeah, I'll throw myself under the bus with this one, right? The cowboys in the tree industry, I hear of them around my area. They come up from Sydney up towards Newcastle, and I'll be out doing a gardening job. I'm not doing residential work anymore, but when I was doing residential work, I'd be out doing a gardening job, and they'll say, "Oh, we had the islanders coming around knocking on our door telling us that we needed these trees to be sorted out." And I don't mind throwing the islanders under the bus because I'm a Tongan. You look at me and go, "No, you don't look like you're Tongan." Yeah, I'm Tongan. Right? But it's true, right? You get the cowboys in your industry and you get the cowboys in my industry. Unfortunately, some of them make a really bad name for themselves because they're quite pushy or they're quite undercutting and whatever it might be. I sit there and I look at either industry and I go, there's a place for them in the business. There's a job I don't want to do that I'm going to pass on to somebody else who's happy to do it. And there's other vice versa. It goes both ways. Some people will pass work to me because it's outside of the scope of what they do. Yeah. So the person who wins the job by undercutting you was never really your customer anyway, was it?
No. And again, if we'll talk about some of the margins and we'll do the numbers, and I go like, nobody can do that job for that amount of money. It is impossible to pay your wages, your fuel, your equipment, and still make money at that cost. Like, how are they doing that? But then you quickly realize that you're not, that's not a business model that's going to be long term.
Well,
So it might be frustrating now losing the odd business here and there, and having customers have a whinge about the tree lopper that came in yesterday and did such an awful job and made a mess.
Yeah,
and it's like, what did you pay the tree lopper? Oh, it was $500. I said, that's probably a $3,000 job. No wonder you got what you paid for. But at the very least, they're not going to refer them again. And so the market kind of has a way to separate where the different people need to be in the market.
We've seen in the last couple of years,
especially for the younger guys. It's frustrating when they see that kind of thing happening because they haven't been around long enough to know you can ride out these waves. Those guys come in and they disappear again. They're not going to be there forever.
Yeah. We've seen in the last couple of years, I know in my area even, a tree lopper who dropped a tree on a house and he couldn't be found. Nobody could find where he went.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, clearly there are people who are out there being a little bit dishonest and trying to make an honest dollar, but is it that honest? I know I'll throw myself under the bus again, right? I'm throwing myself under the bus being an islander, but when I started lawn care, I looked at business much like a cowboy. I went, I can charge $50 an hour for lawn mowing. That is awesome. And the expenses aren't that high. That's going to leave me with a very healthy wage. And then by the time I started paying my expenses, I realized that I was working for $25 an hour for the hours I was actually getting paid for.
Oops. Yeah.
And the hours I wasn't getting paid for was as much as that again. So I was really working for about $10 to $12 an hour. And then I didn't actually do the maths until I went to put on an employee, and I realised that I couldn't afford to pay him $20 an hour because I was running at a loss for every hour he was working.
Yep.
That's the cowboy method.
Yes. Oh, yes, because you're living from hand to mouth.
And you can do it, right?
Oh, yes.
14, 15 years ago, $50 an hour to do a lawn care job, I could do that because I was only undercutting myself. I was literally going out there working for $10 to $15 for an hour's work. And, that didn't matter to me because I hadn't done the maths. And once I did do the maths, it mattered a whole lot.
Well, and I remember the other thing I ran into that first year as well is like it had been really busy and really good, and business is going well. And then I woke up, it was about this time of the year again, the kids were just about out of school and school holidays and hanging around at home. And I was heading out every morning to go work. And I remember the one morning getting up and go like, and I really love what we do.
Yeah.
But I woke up one morning and go like, and I hadn't felt like that for ages. Like it was only when I used to work for a boss I felt that many mornings. I woke up and go like, I really don't. I need a rest. I really don't want to go work today. And I realized that I had worked almost unbroken for 12 months
without
you
a
were
break.
That focused, and nothing more than maybe a long weekend camping or something. And even then, it took, by the time you pack up everything again to come home, you haven't even switched off completely yet.
Yeah.
And then I realized that you like working for somebody else, you gotta figure out some way to carve out some time for yourself and the family so you can go on holidays. You can take a break.
Yeah.
And then, after that first year, I said, okay, well, from now on, I'm going to put whatever, I think it was like $200 or $300 a month. I'm going to put that aside so that come into the year, there's enough money to go away for a couple of weeks and completely switch off and relax and not have to worry about the business or any of those kind of things. So that's the other, some of those bits and pieces that we forget as well, because it's good and well starting off a business, and especially if you get into the role really quickly and business is coming in and people are responding to ads and flyers and things and getting really business, the book's building up, but you end up burning yourself out towards the end of the year and you don't really want to work anymore. That's not a good space to be in either.
No, it's not, is it?
No. So you got to keep that in mind too, on top of doing everything else we do, working every day. We got to keep keep remembering to take a bit of R&R every so often. The Friday afternoon beers, they do it for a while, but at some point you need to switch off for a bit longer than that.
Yeah, well, I don't drink alcohol at all, so it was a very, very quick, harsh lesson once I realised I was not earning even a wage.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Alvin, it's been great chatting to you today. We've covered a bunch of topics here around what's involved in running businesses, and given a little bit of a plug for the Tomcat Chippers and giving people some insight. I think for the people that listen to this, the majority of people are going to be looking at that sort of the 100 size, the 4-inch size chipper, if they are looking at getting into that aspect of the market. And I think typically, like I said before, you're sort of in that $5,000 to $10,000 bracket. I think the Tomcat comes in within that just price range.
Yeah, just over 8 for the trolley one. Yeah.
Yeah, but if people are thinking of making a step up in that area, then moving into that option where the chipper is designed to be part of the trailer or removable from a trailer that's dedicated to collecting mulched garden waste, so you can make it a more useful part of your everyday work. Yeah, it's a tool that is, I think it's invaluable in terms of growing a business in that direction.
Yeah,
like
especially, you say, it's more than just processing the branches. Like, the conversation you had a couple of weeks ago with was it Jason? Got his name for a second.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Anyway, reducing the amount of trailer space and the options that you have in quoting and those kind of things. When you start adding tools like that to your arsenal, becomes very valuable very quickly. The
fact that you've had several people attempting to make their own trailer with your Tomcat in there before you've gone, that makes a lot of sense. Let's get an Australian trailer maker to work on this.
Yeah,
and I'd looked at doing the same thing. So yeah, there's definitely a good market for it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining me today, Alvin. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary.
Hey, you. Yes, you with the moist grass on your bare legs. This is a new year and a new podcast. I'm asking you to join me in some changes made just for you. I want listeners to join the new Facebook group for Aussie Lawn Stars, so you can give me feedback on existing episodes and content ideas for more episodes. But more importantly, it's a place you can ask questions. The simple questions may get answered by members in the group already, much like you would find in any community group. But the questions will fuel and feed future episodes. More importantly, if you ask a question in the group or on the YouTube comments section, you may get sucked into the dungeon where your question and you become a feature episode. In short, join Aussie Lawn Stars on Facebook, YouTube and Instagram to participate and engage with me directly and other listeners who want to help or be helped.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.